They're still looking for Lauren.
So we recorded a full band live. That's drums, bass, guitar, electric guitar, a B3 organ, and a second electric guitar for this song. I'll play the full mix so you can listen to it for a bit. And then I'll go through and solo up some of the mics and all the drums and walk you through what I did and how it sounds.
No, your luck isn't lost. Oh, it just left town. Oh, the road goes on forever. Here comes Kathy's cloud. Oh, your luck isn't lost. No, it just left town. So they're looking for Lauren at the office lounge.
I'm going to solo up all the drums first, the drum mix I've got going. So this is the kick in, it's Next 2. It does a good job of capturing the attack of the kick drum. Still has some low end, and what's nice is it doesn't have that sort of bouncy, annoying basketball sound. Now I'll solo up the outside kick mic, which is a KSM 40. This is exactly what I hope to get out of this outside kick mic. It's got really good bottom end. Oftentimes in a mix, you solo up the kick, you hear the attack, but then in the mix, it's not quite there. And that's when I add in the inside kick mic, which I'll do now. Snare top, we're using the Shure KSM 141. I much prefer to blend in the bottom snare with the top to add snap and brightness versus EQing, which can overly accentuate cymbals and hi-hats especially. You can tell it does a great job of isolating the snare. There's not a ton of cymbal bleed. Very flat mic, great top end. You hear the snap, you hear the body, and nothing's too exaggerated. So I'm going to start with the kit mics. So there's one mic over the rack that captures the tom and the cymbals. And then there's one mic to the side of the floor tom, firing above the floor tom over the head at the hi-hat. And that captures the ride and that side of the kit. The cymbals sound great. They're clear, they're crisp. You hear the tom like you normally would, but it's not quite enough body, especially in the mix. And that's why I put bottom tom mics. So I'm going to turn on these bottom tom mics now. To me, that's just like, wow, that's how it sounds, how I want it to sound. The tom's cut through. They're nice and full. So the kit mic is positioned above the front of the kick drum and equidistant from the two toms and the snare drum. And I like to use a ribbon mic. And in this scenario, I'm using the Shure 313, and it sounds pretty awesome. What I'm looking for here is to capture sort of the body of the kit, the low mids, the mid range, but I don't want a ton of cymbals. I don't want a ton of deep low end because I've already got the outside kick mic taking care of that and the bottom tom mics. And so what this does is it adds a nice solid center to the drum set and helps to sort of reinforce the kick and the snare and the toms, the meat and potatoes of the drum set. So now we're listening to the room mics. I positioned about 6 feet from the drum set, right in front of the kick drum. And it's a pair of KSM 44s, both set to figure 8, immediately above each other, so a coincident pair. And at 90 degrees to pick up a stereo image of sort of the drums in the room. And so the room mics are really fun to turn up and down. I'll take them out. Surprisingly tight sounding drum set for a big room with all the close mics. And then I'm going to turn them up gratuitously. You can even hear David's scratch vocal in there. So now we're going to tackle the bass. We put the KSM 40 single-sided large diaphragm condenser on there. That's usually a pretty good choice for a low frequency instrument because of the accentuated proximity effect, exaggerates the low end. You'll hear the low end is just gorgeous on it, honestly. You still hear the mid-range articulation. I think in the mix, I'd probably mellow out the low end a little bit, and that's more about the bass setting than anything. But you want to capture the low end first and then adjust to taste later. If you don't have the low end in the first place, then you're working with nothing. For the electric guitar, Damien's guitar, we had 2 mics. Right now we're hearing 313 ribbon microphone. This is a great match for this setup. So a Strat is a lot of transient response, pretty bright single coil pickups through a pretty bright amp. And so I love a ribbon on a guitar amp. It smooths things out really nicely, captures the meat of the guitar. And for this, I'm definitely leaning on the ribbon for this mix. Now I'm going to switch to the KSM 32. It's a 3/4 inch large diaphragm condenser, cardioid. It sounds great, to be honest, but I like to blend the two. If I need a little more bite or high frequency mid-range to cut through a mix, I'll turn up the condenser. Or if it's sounding too bright, I'll favor the ribbon. So right now we're listening to the condenser, and I'll add the ribbon mic in. So that's them together. So instead of EQing things, I like to balance the mics out. So I'm going to try and do this where I keep the volume equivalent, right? When you have 2 mics, it doubles the volume. So that's favoring the ribbon. That's favoring the condenser, which you can tell has a little more mid-range bite, especially as it gets louder. I'm going to switch back to the ribbon. It's a little more low end, a little more heft. And now a blend of the two that's a little more even. So now we'll move on to the second guitar, the rhythm guitar that David was playing while singing. And we had the Nexodyne 5 dynamic mic on this cab. I don't typically use a dynamic mic on a cab very often. I like to do a ribbon and a condenser. But when I put up the fader, I thought, wow, this sounds pretty incredible. And now we're going to get to the B3 organ. This is probably the fanciest setup we've got going because we are using 3 mics. One mic is on the Leslie rotary speaker. It's a guitar rotary speaker, but we're using it for the low frequencies of the B3 organ. And it just rotates slowly. And I'll solo that up first. And we're using the Nexodyne 2 on here, which is good for picking up the low end. It's not very impressive on its own, but you hear it swelling and getting louder and quieter. That's the point. So the mid mic is a cardioid. I use the KSM 40. And what's really great about these particular mics for mid-side is just the ergonomics and shape. So they stack up really nice. And so you can get the capsules really close and perfectly center aligned. So you can hear that classic rotary sound of the thing spinning. But the cool thing is catching it in stereo. So you want to hear it spinning around your head. And so I'm going to add the side mic in. And it sounds pretty cool. And what's cool about mid-side is you can turn the side up and down to narrow or widen the stereo image. So I'm going to turn it down. That's mostly just the mid-center mic, and now I'm going to widen it. That's very wide. Then we'll get a good balance. Now we'll add the low end. And we'll throw the rest of the band in. Now we're up to the lead vocal. And for this song, we use the KSM 44. 1-inch diaphragm, double-sided. It has a little more air top end than the KSM 32, which is a little more flat. And that works really nice for this song because on the quieter passages, that top end's really nice. And I mentioned earlier that David is a very dynamic singer. This is him singing in the verse, and then this is him getting crazy on the loud part of the song. So I do have a compressor on there just for when he was singing so he could hear himself better. But I'm going to start with the compressor off as I play this for you.
And your luck isn't lost. No, it just left out.
It's a really balanced sound. This is sort of what I like in a vocal mic. Nice top end clarity and a nice body without being overly bright, overly sibilant. And what I really noticed, honestly, is how it handles sibilance is really quite good, especially for a modern microphone.
At the office lounge.
Here's the louder part. And that dude can sing loud, so the mic is handling the SPL really well. It's not buckling. It doesn't sound like it's having a hard time keeping up.
Isn't lost. No, it just left town. So they're looking for Lauren at the office lounge.
And so no EQ, nothing, no compression there. I'll add the compressor in so you can hear it.
No, your luck isn't lost. Oh, it just left town.
Let's pop the whole band in.
Oh, the road goes on forever.
I mean, it sits in the mix really nice. Now I'll do a manual fade for you. All right, well, thanks for joining me here at Russian Recording and checking this video out. This was an interesting experiment for me as well, because the studio is sort of known for our exotic vintage microphone collection. And that's what I usually use for sessions. And so putting this up, I thought it would be fun to listen. And I just remember, you know, we mic'd everything up and put up the faders, and I'm being totally genuine. I was pretty blown away. I can make a whole record with all these mics without hesitation. I think what makes them stand out to me is their really flat frequency response. And that's not to say that they're boring sounding, which you just heard. They're actually very flattering. The frequency response is balanced, but I think more importantly what I notice is that the phase response is balanced. Because when you combine all these mics is where you really hear what they sound like. How do they stack up? and they stack up beautifully. And I think a lot of that has to do with how they pick up off-axis frequencies. So that's usually where a mic falls apart, is when the sound enters from the side of the mic. And these are very phase coherent mics with really smooth off-axis response, which is especially important for drums. They're very easy to use. They are very easy to position. These things are really important to me as a working engineer, that I can count on these devices to work each time, and I can put them up quickly, and I know what they're going to do. They're not going to surprise me. Really, if you've made a lot of records, you just want to do a good job of recording, and I can't recommend another modern mic that does it this well at any price point.